Am I the a-hole for telling my brother that I want an apology from his wife and not him? My 11-year-old son goes to a skate park after school with his friends, who include his cousins / my nephew Jack, who is also 11. I went to pick up both boys when I saw a crowd of kids by the fence. I went over and asked what was so interesting, and they pointed to a snake. Not just a snake, but a rattlesnake. They had never seen one before, maybe outside a zoo, and I assumed they were trying to get it to strike because they didn't think they'd get bit. I told them all to get away from it, and they did, except Jack, who actually got closer with his phone. I think he wanted to get a close-up video of the snake striking. I yelled at him to get away and he told me to hold on, so I took him by his arm and pulled him away. He gave me this angry stare. I told him, WTF, that snake could kill you. And he just gave me the silent treatment until his mom picked him up. Then 20 minutes later, she called me up in a rage about how I grabbed him, and did this and did that, and hurt him, etc., and that I'm not his dad. I asked her if her sweet angel told her about the rattlesnake that he was provoking. She said, what snake? And I just hung up. She called up again and said that I still owed her and Jack an apology for handling him. I told her to shut the heck up and check his phone and see if I did any of that stuff, as his camera was recording everything. An hour later, my brother called me up and said what Jack did was stupid and he was happy I was there, but I still owed his wife an apology for telling her to shut the heck up. I said I'm not apologizing for nothing, at least until she apologizes to me for coming at me sideways twice. He apologized and I said not acceptable. She needs to apologize. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I don't think you did anything wrong. If you didn't end up helping Jack, he would be snake pool right now. You're right to demand your sister-in-law for an apology. I mean, no rattlesnake can eat a human, so that's a silly suggestion, but otherwise right on. You're completely in the right here. Your brother demanded you apologize for dismissing a false accusation, so you're definitely not the a-hole for insisting she apologized for false accusations. He wants to avoid drama in the family? He should have handled the entire convo with you from the beginning. She comes in hot, she can be embarrassed. She also needs to thank him after the apology. The bratty nephew should have to apologize to his uncle for lying about the incident, and also acknowledging that he was in danger. Then thank uncle for probably saving his life, or at least saving him from the trauma of a snake bite and subsequent anti-venom treatment. Or to give up his rides home from the skate park. Not the a-hole. I had a somewhat similar experience when I was in grad school. Waiting at a bus stop, and a little boy jumped into the street for his toy, right in front of the bus. The bus wasn't going to stop for another 10 feet, so I grabbed him by both shoulders and jumped back and we both fell onto the sidewalk, but clear of the street and the bus. His mother, who was about 30 or 40 feet away, ran up and started screaming her head off that I'd attack her boy. I suspect she'd have gotten violent with me if there wasn't a small group of folks who were helping us up and making sure we were okay. Someone, maybe bus driver, told her that her boy might have been dead instead of having a skinned elbow. She still didn't apologize and just turned her anger on the bus driver, who she accused of trying to kill her boy. It really was something else. I left my name and number with the bus driver in case that woman made a complaint like she threatened, because the driver hadn't done anything wrong either. I'm glad you had a group of people to back you up. Stories like yours are exactly why I say being a parent does the opposite of lend you credibility. I almost feel for that mom, because it's like she physically couldn't reason in that moment. My child was hurt, was overriding her brain function, and she had to point blame with her only consideration being where to point it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for wanting to spend time with my wife instead of babysitting my little sister? I'm 24 male and my wife recently had our 5-year anniversary. We had planned to go to a nice restaurant, then ride in a hot air balloon and then go to a lake and relax. I was going to buy her flowers and all. Then, out of the blue, a day before my anniversary, I get a text from my mom demanding me to babysit my sister for a week, while she and my dad go visit my aunt who recently got diagnosed with leukemia. Now, I love my sister. We're 18 years apart, but are still closer than ever. She has a bit of a mental challenge, but otherwise is a pretty normal kid. I was debating whether to say yes, but I didn't want a kid in tow while I was having a date with my wife. So I politely declined and didn't get an answer. So I thought it was okay. The next day we're at the restaurant when my phone starts buzzing like crazy. I check it, and it's filled with text from my mom and dad. They're calling me all sorts of things and saying that they showed up at my house, only for it to be empty. They're now ignoring me when I write to them and I haven't gotten an answer. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My sister is currently staying with a family friend who we've known all our lives. The friend has 2 kids who are very close to my sister. The family friend said she wouldn't mind keeping her for the week as she gets a break from her twins and encouraged me to relax. My aunt is not in critical condition. She is doing fine. She also lives far away and it takes a couple of hours to get to her. Not the a-hole. This is ludicrous. Whose child is this? One day before my anniversary, I get a text from my mom demanding me to babysit my sister for a week, while she and my dad go visit my aunt. They need to understand that this is not how things work. One thing I don't see anyone pointing out is, in Opie's edit, they say the aunt isn't in critical condition. If there was no rush, why did his parents choose the exact date of his anniversary to go out of town? They could have easily waited a couple days when Opie's anniversary was over. I get the impression he would have had no issues in watching his sister for the week. It's a human reaction, much like people rushing to see people on their deathbed when you otherwise haven't bothered for a decade. When someone gets a bad diagnosis, people want to visit immediately, even if that's not necessarily helpful. I know people who hide diagnoses for that reason, because there's a feeling time is running out. Entirely possible that in the instinctive panic they forgot the anniversary. If the parents had an honest miscommunication when they were worried, that wouldn't be an a-hole territory. But they're blowing up at Opie when he texted them a polite decline is firmly in a-hole territory. Worst case, they ignored his polite decline and were intent on dropping her off anyway, which is firmly a-hole territory. In either case, his parents are the a-holes. Not the a-hole. You had plans. You politely declined, with notice. You're not your sister's keeper. It's on them to find a sitter and they had plenty of time to do so, but they failed to do that. I hope you had a lovely anniversary in spite of it all. Even with the info that your aunt was diagnosed with leukemia, you're not the a-hole. It was still on them to either make other plans or communicate with you at all, rather than making demands. If they chose to go just one day later, then you could have decided if you'd be willing to keep your sister for a week. There were workarounds and other options. They just chose to ignore all of them. They're calling me all sorts of things and saying that they showed up at my house, only for it to be empty. The fact that you're even asking if you're the a-hole combined with the above suggests them ignoring your answers to them asking you for something probably isn't that new. I can see why they'd want to comfort your aunt, but you had plans. It was your anniversary, and no is a full sentence, not the a-hole. Yes, the thing that irked me is they demanded it, instead of asking. If my parents called me upset and were like, we have this really devastating situation and we really need your help. Can you watch X for Y number of days? I would definitely help, even if it was not ideal timing. But tell me I'm doing it? Politely F off. Next story. Am I the a-hole for cussing at a teacher after she gave my information to a reporter? I'm one of the few but growing number of single men who forgot marriage and became a dad on my own. In my case, I used a surrogate 3 times, so I have 3 boys between ages of 5 and 10. When they started school and started to make friends, I did tell a few parents because they wanted to know more about me before letting their kids spend time with my kids. Most were intrigued for a few minutes, but that went away once they realized how normal we are. I'm neither advocate nor opponent of single-parent surrogacy. I did what worked for me. I also don't promote it the same way people promote their personal lives for clout. In fact, I haven't told anybody about it in years. That brings me to my son's 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. F. I got a random call from a reporter asking to interview me for a magazine piece on men resorting to surrogacy to have kids. I thought it was a joke, but he had all sorts of information including the names of my kids and what I did for work. I asked how he got my information, and he said from Mrs. F, who is a friend of his. In fact, she gave him my number. I was pissed. The next day, I told Mrs. F about a call, and she said it would be so exciting to be in a magazine and online. I asked, why the heck did she put my personal life out there? That's a total betrayal. She said she didn't know I'd be that upset and simply thought that I'd be open to it. I told her that I didn't tell her my business, let alone give her permission to spread. She didn't say anything, so I called her a freaking moron who needs to grow the heck up. She probably thought I'd complain to the principal, but that's not my style. I will tell you stuff to your face. But now the vice principal is acting like an intermediary between us after she said I cussed her out. He did say that I was out of line, but that she was even more way out of line. and he asked me to be understanding because she's young and lives online. I told him that he's just mad that he actually has to do some work now, and the funny part is that I'm not even mad at her anymore. I don't like her, but it's not like she matters in a few months. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. The vice principal needs to not be making excuses for her. What she did was disrespectful, rude, and unethical. You do not give out other people's personal information without their permission. If she wanted to give her friend a lead, she could have said, "Hey, I know a single dad who might be a good fit. Let me ask him if he'd like to talk to you." And that's it. Nothing about your contact info, life, and especially not about your children. Actually, she may have broken a law. I'm not super familiar with the FERPA, but she may have seriously violated it. That is no joke either. It's a serious violation. There is so much protection in what school can give about children. I'd ask for a list of the kids' names for a Christmas cards thing my little sister wanted to do. They were not allowed to give it because it was sensitive data. I cannot imagine how many were broken to not only give their names, but also the parent's contact info and his occupation. He asked me to be understanding because she's young and lives online. You were understanding. You didn't report her to the principal in an attempt to get her fired. Instead, you reamed her like she deserved to be. Logical consequences. Not the a-hole. I think that was his way of blaming it over a generational misunderstanding between a Gen Z and a millennial. Millennials and Gen Z aren't this stupid, however. A majority of us know better than to give out information like this without permission. Especially now with the way certain states are getting in the US. If this happened here, not the a-hole, but the VP and teacher are and need to be held accountable. I don't even give friends other friends' numbers. I'll contact the third party myself and let them know who is looking for them, or text the askers info. But I'm not just handing out other people's stuff. Last story. Am I the a-hole for arguing with my wife and refusing to fire the nanny? Hi, male 30s live with my wife, female 30s. We both work full-time jobs and have 3 kids ages 3, 6, and 7. I used to work from home with flexible hours, but I've been offered a promotion which requires me to go to work in person. The pay increase is really significant, so my wife and I agreed I should take the promotion and hire a part-time nanny for our kids. I got in touch with a nanny agency and they matched us to someone who lives local. They only told us her first name, which was a really common name anyway, but for the sake of storytelling, we'll say her name is Sarah. I spoke to Sarah on the phone and she seemed really nice. We arranged a day for her to come over and meet my wife and the kids and for us to show her around the house. When the day came around and we met her, it turned out that my wife already knew Sarah. It was really awkward and I wasn't sure how they knew each other until afterwards. My wife told me that back when she was in high school, her boyfriend at the time cheated on her with Sarah, who was in her class. She wasn't enthusiastic about it, but my wife didn't seem to have a problem with Sarah being our nanny at first. Our kids love her. She has lots of experience and she's available when we need her. After a couple of weeks with pretty much no issues, my 2 oldest kids come to me and say that they don't want Sarah to come back. I asked them why, and they said she's evil. I ask why they think she's evil, and our 6-year-old starts crying and says that Sarah's mean and wants to hurt mommy. I talked to my wife in private, and at first she said she had no idea what the kids were talking about, and that it must be because of something Sarah did. When I pressed it, my wife admitted that she told the kids that Sarah's evil. She said she knows it was a ridiculous plan, but she was hoping I'd fire her. My wife asked me to fire the nanny because their history makes her uncomfortable. I asked why it wasn't an issue before, but my wife said she just needed to think about it and she's decided Sarah has to go. I told my wife that we can find another nanny, but until then, there's no reason to get rid of Sarah, and that she was out of line for trying to weaponize the kids against her when Sarah's no danger to them. My wife disagreed and said that we need to just fire Sarah ASAP and hire a temporary babysitter until we can find another nanny. She said that she wasn't weaponizing the kids, she was just setting boundaries. This turned into a really heated argument, and I called my wife insecure and controlling, and told her she needs to go to therapy. My wife said I'm being inconsiderate of her feelings and need to put myself in her shoes. This was one of our biggest arguments in a very long time, and I just want a neutral opinion on whether I was wrong. Everyone sucks here. Your wife shouldn't be talking trash about Sarah to your kids, but you also shouldn't be insisting that Sarah remain hired. There are plenty of other people who I'm sure would be equally as nice and fun as Sarah, with the added bonus that this one won't have painful beef with your wife. This. Everyone sucks here. Opie, this is just ridiculous. Your wife was way out of line to say that to the kids and try to use them like that. And it sounds like she did some actual, hopefully just temporary, emotional damage in doing so. But she's right, Sarah needs to go, immediately. Why the heck would you want to keep your wife in a clearly uncomfortable position, much less continue to keep your kids in this situation? Keeping Sarah around for a couple weeks more, just because you don't want to bother finding someone to fill in until you and your wife find a permanent replacement, is a terrible idea, and it shows your wife and kids that you don't give a crap about their feelings. Save your kids and your marriage, and Sarah frankly, and more foster clock exposure. Plus, I'm sure it's a bit of a slap in the face to feel like her husband is picking Sarah over her. Yes, it was very naive to have hired Sarah in the first place. Oh, but well, my wife seemed okay with it. I'm sure it will be fine. Just know, sometimes someone is perfectly nice and qualified, but just not a good fit. Especially in a job like a nanny where the person is spending lots of time in your personal spaces. And I'm sure there are any number of other equally qualified and equally nice nanny candidates that the agency could refer. Equally, I am horrified that the wife would frighten her children like that, in a passive-aggressive attempt to get Opie to fire Sarah, as opposed to just saying, "Hey honey, I gave it a try for a few weeks, but I'm just not comfortable having Sarah as a nanny, because of our past history." The fact that the wife felt the need to do such a roundabout manipulation rather than just talking, I think Opie's right in that she could benefit from some counseling, because that is not a normal or healthy way to deal with conflict. But hiring Sarah in the first place was dumb. Everyone sucks here.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my sister's husband's surgery with my inheritance/college money? Context. My sister, female 27 and I, 18 female, lost our dad a year ago. He was my only parent as mom was never in mine or my sister's life. Dad left money, inheritance, for me and sister, and she used her inheritance to get new cars and renovate her house. I live with my aunt right now because my brother-in-law didn't let me stay with my sister, and I'm planning on using my inheritance money to pay for college tuition. I've always wanted to be doctor but haven't decided which branch yet. My sister and I haven't been close. It started after she got married to her chronically ill husband, who was allowed to make backhanded comments about Dad and mock his illness, and make a scene at his funeral, only because he's ill and shouldn't be held accountable for his behavior. I've distanced myself, but my sister kept visiting a lot lately, venting about my brother-in-law's condition. He's been in and out the hospital for heart problems and in need of a surgery. She brought up my inheritance money several times, but I ended up cutting the conversation. She then straight up asked if I could help pay for her husband's surgery, and that she'd pay it back in less than a year. I felt uneasy because if I give her money for my inheritance, which is a large amount, then there's no guarantee she'll pay me back before it's time to apply for college. I'm taking a year gap, but I know my sister can't pay back that much and I felt I was risking my future. So I refused to help, and she had a meltdown at my aunt's house, calling me heartless and cruel with no empathy. She said that her husband's health should be a priority, and I needed to help because education is nothing compared to someone's health, and asked if I'd be happy to see her as a widow and my nephew with no father. My aunt suggested others pay, but most of them cut my sister and her husband off. I argued that her husband's poor health isn't my fault, after she kept blaming and guilt-tripping me. She kept crying, and although my aunt decided to stay out of it, she said that I should be prepared for permanent damage in my relationship with my sister if I don't help her now. She's been sending texts and pictures of her family, telling me this is what I was saying no to. A happy, healthy family with a healthy husband and father. I cried and felt like I was being selfish and not a good aunt and sister. I asked my friend about it, and he said let them sell the cars and all the luxurious stuff they bought to afford the surgery, and warned me that if I give them the money, I'll never get it back, and may not be able to go to medical school. Now for the top comments. Your friend is correct. You'll never get the money back because sister isn't willing to give up her luxurious lifestyle. She chose how to spend her inheritance, didn't save for a rainy day, and isn't entitled to yours because of her poor financial planning. Not an a-hole. I'm not sure whether they still have anything of value, because I remember my aunt talking about my sister selling her car in May. Cars depreciate in value quickly. It still isn't your problem that she decided to spend all of her inheritance unwisely. They're trying to live outside of their means as a family, which means if you give any money, be prepared to not get it back. Don't be surprised if you keep getting asked for more until you're left with nothing. You can have this relationship with your sister, or you can pay for medical school. You can't have both. But your sister and her husband seem toxic, so distancing from them should be your first step. Not stay home. I agree. I think sister torpedoed the idea of family when she left her 17-year-old sister scrambling for a home. I hope he wasn't family then. Not stay home. Your sister chose to spend money she got less than a year ago on expensive things, instead of planning for the future like you did. Easy come, easy go, as they say. Do not give them a penny of your money. They have options they don't want to take, and that's not on you. You're not getting that money back if you lend it. You'll become a fine doctor someday. I'm rooting for you. And she did all that knowing her husband was chronically ill and would inevitably need medical care of some kind, which gets expensive quick. It should have been a no-brainer for the sister to stash her inheritance aside in anticipation of needing it for medical bills. Instead, she spent it selfishly, like assuming she could bully Opie into coughing up her share when sister finally needed it. Not stay home. Your sister is manipulating you. She received the same money you did. If her husband is chronically ill, then she should have saved that money for his care, instead of spending it in luxury items. She probably always planned to spend her money on yours. Will refusing to give her the money damage your relationship with her? Probably. But do you really want to give up your future to preserve the relationship you have with her now? Because it sounds like a terrible one. And don't think that giving her this money will improve the relationship at all. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not wanting to help financially support my sister-in-law's family while she tries to make their circumstances better? This is something that has bothered me the last few days, so I want to get some honest feedback here. My husband and I come from very different backgrounds. He came from a pretty wealthy family and never really needed to worry about school/work because he and his sister were cuddled by their parents and spoiled. But he always had this ambition to be a vet, and thankfully he was willing to work towards it. While I came from a dirt poor family. My parents were both addicts too. And I have dyslexia and was unsupported at home or in school because my parents never took the steps to get me help, but I was able to muddle through. I ended up with a GED and I went to community college. Eventually found my talent with numbers and was able to get a solid job once I realized I did have the ability. It was hard, but we worked hard though. And I don't say this to brag, but because it was so hard for me, I have less sympathy for my sister-in-law than my husband does, because she made choices that led her here. But anyway, she's married, was living off her husband's job, but now they have 5 kids under 7 and they're struggling. My husband gave her money before, should say borrowed, but it was never paid back, and that was fine. But now she asked him if we would agree to lend some financial assistance while she gets an education to broaden her job horizons. She said it would take 2 years. We could document every cent and she would pay it all back. She said she knows she needs to do better for her family, and that her husband can't shoulder it all anymore. My husband asked me what I thought, and I was honest. I wasn't okay with supporting them for 2 years, because it means putting some of our wishes on hold for quite a bit. We wanted to buy a gaming PC for our family which we had saved for. We wanted to fix up our basement too so we can use it. Those 2 things would cost money that we would only have in our emergency fund if we start to give his sister money. And it's selfish, I know. But we work so hard for it. And I'm finally in a place where I can realistically do stuff like this and I don't want to give it up. My husband said he understood, and he told his sister no. She was pissed, and she blamed me despite him saying we didn't feel comfortable contributing for 2 years. She knows her brother, and knew he would do it in a heartbeat if it was just his decision, which she would. And she told me the kids are ultimately the ones who suffer and will grow up just like me, and she hopes I can live with that. My husband told her that was uncalled for. But she's kinda right. Without making these changes and working towards the better, nothing will change for them. And they're already struggling on one income and her not having any skills for a job. So tell me, Reddit, am I the a-hole? Edited to Ed. Should have also mentioned my husband's parents no longer had the wealth they once did. Hence them not helping. Not the a-hole. You worked to provide for your family, not someone else's family. What if after 2 years she still doesn't find a job or gets pregnant? She chose to have 5 kids. She needs to take responsibility for them. That was my thought too. Or if she quits part of the way too because it's too tough. A lot of possibilities have crossed my mind. Not Day Hall. I don't wish to be disrespectful to your sister-in-law, but with 5 kids under 7? I think the likelihood of her quitting is unfortunately pretty high. This feels like you're being asked to fund her middle-class self-improvement fantasy, instead of her doing the actual thing that would help her family, which is to go and get a job. Not Day Hall. Student loans exist for the exact reason she's trying to use you as her bank. Of course, you actually have to pay those back, unlike her track record of paying you back. Don't take responsibility for a situation you had nothing to do with creating. Not Day Hall. Thankfully, your husband backed you and stood up for you. Since she plans to document every cent and pay you back, she can get an educational loan instead from you. Given her history, I doubt you would ever see a penny back if you loaned her money. With 5 kids, there would always be an excuse as to why she could not repay you. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not sharing my car with my stepbrother? My parents are divorced but cordial. My mother married my stepdad when I was 11. I have a stepbrother who is my age, and a half-brother who is 4. My dad recently bought me a new car for my birthday, and my brother also had bought a car which he bought with his money. It was second-hand but in good condition. Just a few days after I got my car, he had a crash, in which his car was severely damaged. This was not the first time he was reckless with a car. Earlier, he had almost crashed his father's car as well, with me in the backseat and his father in the front. It is one of the reasons my stepdad refused to buy him a car. A few days back when I returned from my friend's house who lived nearby, I saw my car gone from the driveway. I immediately ran into the house and started looking, asking my mom and stepdad about it. My stepdad looked bewildered, but my mom calmly got up from her seat and told me she had given my car to my stepbrother to go visit his friends who live quite some distance away. I started to panic and ask her why she would do that. She simply said that it's what siblings do, and from then on, me and my stepbrother could use the car on alternate days. By this point, my stepdad had come over to us and told her she shouldn't have done it without my permission. I told her if anything happened to the car, then she would have to pay. She agreed. Well, something did happen. Stepbrother crashed the car. Hood, headlights, and airbags needed to be replaced. I informed my father about this, and after assessing the damage and him learning what led to this, he immediately said either stepbrother or mother has to pay for part of the repair cost which the insurance doesn't cover. My mother tried to negotiate, but he wouldn't budge. She asked stepdad and he wouldn't help either, so she had to give the money from her savings. Yesterday, after the car had come back from the mechanic, she came to me to ask for my car keys. I asked what was up, and she reminded me of the alternative day policy. I told her she was out of her mind to even think I would share the car with my stepbrother after all this. But she just said she had promised stepbrother his share of days. And that is also the reason she had a car repaired so both of us could use it. I took the car keys and locked the door for my room. She then called me ungrateful, and my stepbrother said I was depriving him of meeting his friends and he was suffering. But my stepdad later came and put a stop to it. The only reason I think I might be the a-hole is because I know my stepbrother wasn't lying about his mental health issues. He has had to see a therapist because of it. His friends have been really helpful in his struggle with his mental health, and my mother did say she would pay for the damages. So, I don't know. Should I just give my stepbrother another chance? Am I the a-hole? Also, I did offer to drive my brother to his friends, but he straight up refused, saying it would embarrass him. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Apparently, he's more concerned with his embarrassment than his mental health issues. Tell him to Uber. I agree. His mental health issues are, you guessed it, his issues. He shouldn't be driving, much less Opie's car. Opie was also nice enough to offer to drive stepbrother to his friend's house who lived far away. Not the a-hole. I work in insurance. Holy hell. How are they affording coverage for this kid? It is probably about $4,000 for 6 months at this rate. And why does mom think Opie's ungrateful? She didn't get her the car. Her dad did. Why should Opie be grateful to mom for giving her car to her brother who promptly crashed it? Not the a-hole. This kid is constantly crashing cars, and his own mother thinks it's a smart and reasonable idea to let him keep getting behind the wheel. Get bent. He can take public transit or get a ride from someone. Not even his mom. It's the stepbrother stepmother who's bending over backwards. It makes literally zero sense. Not an a-hole. She can let him use her car if it's so important for him to drive. Exactly. If she thinks it's that important, she can cart him around. If you think riding with your brother is embarrassing, imagine being chauffeured by mom. Not an a-hole. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to do my stepdaughter's dishes and laundry? My husband and I share 3 kids. His daughter 12 and son 11 from his first marriage, who we have full custody of and have lived with full-time since they were toddlers, and our daughter 7. Lately our oldest, who we'll call Amy, has been acting out towards me. She's constantly saying that I'm lazy and do nothing around the house, and undermining me in front of her siblings. Whenever I ask her to do anything, she'll grumble and call me things like lazy idiot under her breath. The other day, when I asked the kids to clean up the mess they left on the table, I heard her tell her brother that I wasn't their real mom, and that they didn't have to listen to me. I have no idea where this came from, as I have always thought of myself as their mom, and have done everything but legally adopt them as my own. I don't have the kids to do a lot of chores, but I just ask they keep their rooms clean. My husband usually makes dinner as he is a much better cook than I am, and I do the dishes. I vacuum and mop the floors once a week, clean the cat litter boxes, and do everyone's laundry. Last night, when I asked Amy to clean up some paint supplies she left scattered on the floor, she called me a lazy jerk who expects her to do everything. I said, fine then. She can do her own chores from now on. Sure enough, after dinner, I did everyone's dishes but hers. I also did laundry this morning but left hers in her hamper. When I told her she had to do her own dishes and laundry, she exploded and went crying to my husband, who said I was being too harsh and singling her out. I'm really at my wit's end here. I tried asking her if she wants to talk. I've tried being nice. I've tried being firm. Am I really being the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She is simply being a rebellious teenager. But you and your husband need to get on the same page and try to get this behavior under control. Otherwise, it will spiral quickly. You say she's leaving paint supplies out. I'd say give her 10 minutes to clean it up or it's going in the bin. Added to add that this was meant to be portrayed as a joke. It was something my mom used to say as a way to get us to clean things we wouldn't. There was once a time she had a wee in her cupboard whilst saying she had binned it. Needless to say, when we got it back a few weeks later, it was always packed away. Not the a-hole. Teens? Oh boy. I have 2, 13 and 15. Some days shaking my head. I swear I'm going to roll my eyes one too many times and they'll be permanently stuck that way. I agree you and your husband must be on the same page. Teens will push and push to see how far they can. You both must be the wall and teach them rules, boundaries, and consequences. It's not easy, and sure as heck not fun. What you did isn't harsh. Harsh would be trying to teach her a lesson by having her do everyone's chores instead of just her own. What you did was hold her accountable, and she didn't like it. That's why she ran to her dad. Not the a-hole, but I would like to know what your husband's take on her horrible behavior is. If he wants to talk harsh, then ask him about what she's been doing to you. Compared to what you've described, what you did was downright tame. Unless he wants to find himself in a position where he is literally choosing between his wife and his daughter, he needs to daddy up and deal with his child. Not the a-hole. Your oldest doesn't seem to have a problem bad-mouthing and claiming you don't do anything. So you only not educate her, but gave her a fair consequence. I say bravo.
Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my sister out financially even though I can afford to? I, 34, female, am the eldest of 9 siblings. My sister, Sarah, 24, and I aren't close. I love all of my siblings, and I'm close with all of them, except for her. Growing up, she wouldn't introduce me to her friends and would refuse to acknowledge me at family gatherings over the years. In short, she was distant with me but not my other siblings. After I moved out of my parents' house, Sarah and I grew further apart and didn't see each other except at family functions. She would ignore my attempts at reaching out and or including her in anything that my other siblings and I did together. She didn't come to my wedding. I didn't even know that I'd gotten divorced until 2 years later. She refused to accept my request to add her to socials and never responded to any calls or texts. It hurts, but I didn't want to push, thinking that she might eventually come around so long as I kept the door open. A year ago, she finally accepted my social media request and sent me a DM. It started out as just a, "Hey sister, how are you?" After some awkward small talk, I learned that she's not doing well financially due to her boyfriend losing his job. She asked me if I could lend her some money as she was short for groceries. I agreed and told her that she didn't have to pay me back. I sent what she asked for and a bit extra. She thanked me and asked if we could visit for a proper catch-up. I agreed, and we set it up. The visit came and went, and she didn't show up or answer my call/texts. I assumed that something came up and texted that she let me know when we could reschedule. 2 days later, she DM'd saying her cell phone had been cut off for non-payment. She asked for help to get it reconnected and said she'd pay me back when she could. I agreed and sent it to her. A few days later, and she asked for more money. I sent her the money again, but told her that I can't send anything else until she pays me back because I didn't have any more that I could spare. I felt like I've been used. Then one day she asked for a cab fare. I said that I'd pick her up and drive her myself. She got angry and accused me of not trusting her. She blasted me on a family group chat saying that I was refusing to help her and that I was selfish. Sarah recently posted something about how she loves her family and how much they mean to her. She tagged all of my siblings except for me. 5 minutes later, she sent me a text asking me for money for diapers, and I lost it. I asked her why she only ever contacts me when she wants money, and that I was feeling used. She denied it and said she was angry that I could accuse her of such a thing. I sent her screenshots to prove it. She said, just forget it then. I tried to apologize for being rude, and she ignored me. A few days ago, she asked for help paying for rent and offered to repay the loan as soon as she could. I could help, but I don't want to. I feel like I'm being used. It hurts that she only ever contacts me when she wants money. So, am I the a-hole? Why do you feel bad for accurately calling her out for using you? Like, totally not the a-hole. Please stop funding her life. You're so desperate for a relationship with her that you're allowing her to manipulate you into giving money. Don't fall for that crap. I feel bad because I don't want my nieces to go without. My family and I try to look out for one another without getting into each other's personal lives or finances without invitation. There was a bit of parentification going on when I was a kid too, so I kind of see her as a daughter of sorts. Still not your issue. She is an adult and is responsible for her decisions and kids. She is using you. Try reading what you just wrote, but pretend a friend wrote it. Often we are too close to a situation to see the truth. Don't give her any more money. Best of luck to you. I am huge into family, but not to the point of being used. You are the oldest. Stop being passive and get a straight answer by asking straight questions. Start asking the other siblings what her problem is. Why is she leaving you out and excluding you? Make this a family issue since Sarah keeps reiterating that she is into the family. Info, I feel like we're missing something big here. Do you know why Sarah's always been so distant with you? I think it's because she and I are so far apart in age. I don't really know, to be honest. Not the a-hole, but refusing her could put you in a bad situation with the family. Have you talked to your family about this? Maybe point out that she blatantly left you out of her post about family and show them your receipts of her only contacting you for money. I've talked with a sister and brother that she's closest to about it. They said they talked to her, but that I should just let it go and stop trying so hard to win her affection. They said that I need to just stop sending her money. Apparently she used to hit them up all the time until they cut her off financially, and said that she's a grown woman who can and should take care of herself. There's your answer. Cut her off. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for pressing charges on my mom when my family told me not to? I, 18 female, and my boyfriend, 22 male, have been living in our first apartment together for a while now, completely independent from our parents. I have never had a good relationship with my mom, 37 female. I had been taken away from her for severe neglect as a young child and was raised by my great-grandparents, 84 male plus 80 female. She wasn't a part of my life for 13 years. When my grandparents eventually passed from old age, she regained custody and moved me across the province I live in. Anyway, when we had settled in our new place, because I have better credit than my boyfriend, we were looking into getting our Wi-Fi under my name. But when I called the best provider in our little rural area, they explained to me that I owe them over $800, which couldn't make any sense as I've never had an account with them in the first place. They gave me the address in the year that it had first been owned, and it was one of the first places I had lived with my mom. I had been 15. We were on civil terms, and I let her know that because I just had a new job and have moved out. Note that I haven't lived with her since I was 15. I've mainly lived with friends. She's pretty crazy, that I won't give her money for my phone bill that I didn't owe her, but was going to anyway until she paid a balance owing under my name. Because not only was my credit now horrible, but we couldn't get Wi-Fi, and that's something I needed for school/work. She blocked me, cut my phone off, and went to my in-laws to try and break up my relationship with my boyfriend. The only way the money owed can be waived is if I press charges for fraud, but when I asked for advice, it was met with, "How can you do that to your mom? She wouldn't be able to get divorced then. She's on her fourth husband and she had cheated on him. How is that my problem? Anyway, am I the a-hole? Should I do it?" You don't press charges. The province does. The fraud can be shown with your birth certificate. You're not old enough to sign a contract when this account was opened, so provider was negligent. You probably have to file a report with the police, but nothing much will happen to your mother. P.S. Get a credit report because she didn't just do this once. This is good advice. She stole money from you and tried to sabotage your relationship with your partner. This is astonishing and abnormal. You don't owe her anything. It seems like you can't demand your overly strenuous relationship either way, so you have nothing to lose. It may seem bad from an external perspective to people who don't know the situation well, but their opinion doesn't matter. Only yours. You need to cover this debt, fix your credit, and get a Wi-Fi, which is crucial for your studies and work. The real question is, how can your mother do that to you? She was an egg donor who has abandoned her responsibility to you, and has literally committed a crime by stealing your identity and leaving you with a bad debt that's harming your ability to live your life successfully. Will these relatives who don't want you to press charges pay the bill? If not, then ignore them for suggesting you just eat your mother's crime. If the mom did it here, how many more lines of credit/accounts did she open in Opie's name? Continue with the charges. She does not have your best interest in mind. Also, the company entered into a contract with a minor, which is illegal. Minors cannot be in a contract in the US. Apparently, your mom represented herself with your name, but the company did not do due diligence to avoid providing service to a minor. Access a free credit report every year starting now. Identify if other illegal charges are there. Best to you. Opie's in Canada, I believe, based on province, so the Crown presses charges, not an individual. Also, it is illegal here too, just so you know. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not involving myself in my ex-husband's child's life? I'm 25 female, ex-husband 29 male, and I divorced a year ago after I found out that he had an affair son, Carl, 1 male. By that time, I already had Adam, 3 male, and Ben, 1 male. Since my husband had an affair, he lost any right to alimony or child support from my part due to prenup stipulations. He also lost his job at my dad's and a car. When he came back begging me for an opportunity, he disclosed that Carl's mom passed away during childbirth, and we were the only family he had. I was hurt for his betrayal, but yet I still felt love for this man, and didn't want to hurt a motherless child, so I told him that I would revoke his mandatory child support payments, because I don't really need them thanks to my dad, so he could focus on doing what was best for Carl and that anything he did, monetary, for our kids was welcome but not necessary. The problem was that, a few months after the divorce, he grew comfortable enough to ask me about how to take care of a child, to the point where he would try to leave me with Carl while I explained. After I realized what was he doing and when I confronted him, he admitted that he was trying to create a bond between us so his child could have a mom too. I immediately put Carl in his arms and said that while I was sorry for the loss of his mother, I'm not willing to play mommy of his affair kid, and to never bring the subject again. He told me how unfair I was being, because now that he's young, it's the perfect time to make an introduction, and how awful it will be for Carl to see his brothers grow up with me. I felt pressured, so I took our kids and told him to contact me again through a lawyer for any future discussion. When I got home, I told my family what happened, and while almost everyone agreed with me, my mom said that I was a horrible human being because that child had no mother, and that she raised me better than this. My dad tried to defend me as well as my sisters, but my mom said that what happened between my ex and I didn't have anything to do with an innocent child, and she hopes I do the right thing, and I love the child. She's also pressuring me to buy things for the kid and make space in my home, such as giving him a bedroom at all, because she won't allow that I take my kids home and he's left there alone. But I said that I don't want to involve myself with him, and now she's not talking to me unless I agree.
Now for the top comments. Yikes. Not today, home. Girl, I'm throwing you a parade for your fantastic boundaries and compassion. The dude broke your trust and your heart, and then took advantage of your gracious decline of child support. His decision to have an affair behind your back and then insist you be responsible to mother the child is abhorrent. Your mom sounds like she is grieving that he is no longer her son-in-law and wants everything to feel like a family again. She probably figures since the other woman has passed away, all harm is bygone, and now everything can go back to the way it was. That's absolutely not the case. It's absolutely on your ex-husband to parent the child, which probably has him beside himself with the responsibility he resents. The child's loss of a mother is tragic, but no reasonable person could believe that your presence could right that wrong. His mother has passed away, no one can replace her. His dad cheated on you and has flat out admitted to manipulating you multiple times to make his life more convenient. The baby deserves better 100%, but that doesn't obligate you to put up with worse. Maybe your mom should adopt him. That child is nothing more to you than every other motherless child in the land. Suggest, sincerely, that your ex get busy and find a loving and gentle new wife who wants to be a mother to his child. There are lots of women out there who would be interested. My infertile friend actually married a widower with 3 kids and admitted it was as much to be a mom as to be a wife. Several years in, they are very happy. A disagreed child is nothing to her. It's her children's sibling. This is a stickier situation than it could be because their half-brother is going to feel left out. Is that her problem to fix? No. She's not a-hole for boundaries, but I can't help but feel for a kid that's gonna see his brothers go spend time with mom when he doesn't have one. Dad could use that time to make his son feel special, or he could be an A. That's not Opie's responsibility at all, but my heart hurts for that kid, and I get her mom's point. Hopefully as they get older, she might allow sleepovers if the older two ask for him to come over, but she wouldn't have to. It would be noble of her to do it on her own volition, but Dad is being sneaky and a jerk about things. I see your point, sort of, but not really. Why should a woman and her kids be forced to even know or ever meet the children the man sires on mistresses, one-night stands, or affairs? Sure, they are siblings in the sense of a man's DNA. Why is that even important? Why can't they be thought of as a sperm donor's other offspring? Why all the sibling stuff? NTA, NTA, NTA. I'm horrified at your mom's suggestions. It's an affair child for crying out loud. How would your mom feel if your dad suddenly came home with an affair child? Not very good, I'd suppose. It would ruin the family, I presume. Now, your kids are still young, but if they were any older and they understood this, they probably won't be very welcoming of this kid too. You are not a saint, and you do not owe that child and your ex anything. No, no, no. Even if the child did nothing wrong, why do you have to live with the proof of your ex's infidelity? It would take a toll on you and affect your emotions. How would your mom feel if your dad suddenly came home with an affair child? She would probably take him in. My mom herself is an affair kid. She says that not having someone loving you or accepting you is horrible, and that I'm in a position to help because the baby's young, motherless, I have the time and money, so I have to do what's best. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my nephew it's not his birthday? My daughter's 7th birthday was yesterday. We went by my mom/her grandma yesterday for dinner, cake, and gifts. My brother and my nephews were there too, and daughter gets along well with her cousins. My mom has this birthday crown that she has the kids wear when it's their birthday. One of my nephews, 5, asked my daughter if he could wear the crown for a little bit. She agreed. Then when we were doing cake, he asked her to help her blow out candles. She said sure. I kinda looked at my brother, hoping he'd say something to his son, but he didn't. Then when we were giving my daughter her gifts, my nephew, who still had a crown on, asked my daughter if he could help her open her presents. I stepped in and said, no, it's her birthday, not yours. Let her open her gifts by herself. My nephew seemed kinda pouty. Thing about my daughter is she's too nice sometimes, and has a hard time if she thinks saying no will hurt feelings. This seemed like one of those times. Later, my brother said nephew was just having fun. It wasn't that big of a deal. The brother and his wife let him open their gifts on their birthdays, and he knows they're not his gifts to keep. I said, yeah, but that's you, an adult. She's a kid and should get to celebrate her own birthday without sharing it. My brother said I'm teaching my daughter to be mean. Am I the a-hole? He is teaching his son that he always has to get his way and be the center of attention. 5 is plenty old enough to realize that other people matter, and not every day is about them. His kid is being raised to be entitled.
Wait till he tries that at a school friend's birthday party. This happened at a party when my daughter was in kindergarten. One of the attendees had an absolute screaming meltdown because she was not allowed to blow out the birthday child's candles, nor open the presents. Turned out to be the child my daughter had talked about all year who was always throwing tantrums. We did not invite her to my daughter's party that following summer. Not day home. You're teaching your daughter it's okay to say no and have boundaries. A nephew needs to learn how to hear no and respect boundaries. This is important. OP, I don't want to put the fear of God into you over an interaction between two cute little kids, but do not let your brother teach your daughter that saying no is being mean. Jesus freaking Christ. This is so important. Not stay home. Teach your daughter that saying no is her right and doing so is not mean, no matter how bratty your cousin is. Also, give the girl back the birthday crown for crying out loud. Who does that?